This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It is sponsored by Independent Bank as well as Marianne Quist of RE/MAX Central. And we're talking schools today on this Saturday, the 29th of August. We're just a couple of days away from the beginning of what promises to be one of the strangest school years in memory. And we've got Jennifer Brown with us. She is Cadillac Area Public Schools Superintendent. And you've now set a record, Jen, because this is your third time with us. How are you, Jen?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
You now are on the cusp of months of planning, pre-planning, replanning, rewriting the playbook as it's been written. So where do we stand right now, 2 days ahead of school starting?
Sure. So we feel really good about where we stand right now. We continue to be in Phase 5 up here in northern Michigan, which we feel blessed to be a part of. So we are welcoming our kids back face-to-face on Monday. We're excited to open our doors up to our kids with some restrictions and certainly some health and safety protocols that we have in place. We're also looking to virtually welcome our kids who are learning from home with us as well this year. So we have lots of people working really diligently and hard to make sure that our kids feel welcome, that we provide them a real positive educational experience during these uncertain times, but we also that we focus on our safety and health of our kids as well. So it will look a little bit different, a little bit new, but we're trying to make it as normal as possible for our kids. And
it's interesting because right now, not only are you talking about educating kids, and they have had a longer break than usual, more than 5.5 months, but also trying to meet the emotional needs, right? This is different for so many people at every level.
Certainly. It's probably our number one priority beyond the health and safety of our kids is to really check in with our kids where they are socially and emotionally. They have had unstructured time for nearly 6 months, as you said. So when we get our kids in the doors or when we get them through our screens, we'll definitely start by just checking in on them, talking about what our expectations are, where they're at with not only their academic but their emotional needs, and then re-engaging our kids in what our expectations and routines and rules for school, because it has been a long time. Mm-hmm. And there's some anxiety, about returning to school, certainly amongst our parents and our students. So it will be our primary focus as we ease back into school.
There have been 3 pathways that you have offered. Do you want to outline each one of those as you've outlined them online and the website? The pathways that you're offering.
Sure. So our traditional pathway is our face-to-face pathway, which again includes some different protocols this year. But it's a traditional schedule. Students would arrive at school either dropped off or by bus. Definitely there will be masks and some social distancing signage, lots of breaks for hand sanitation and hand washing. But that traditional school day will look and feel much like it has in the past, offering that really high-quality educational experience. And then we have spent all summer and then beyond, about 6 months, redesigning our virtual Viking Academy. So allowing kids to enroll and learn from home in pre-designed courses that meet the state expectations for content, but also then layering in some of those personal touches that we really pride ourselves at CAP, so that weekly check-in with our students and our parents, actually 2 times a week, parents would expect to hear from us and just making sure things are going well. And then this hybrid path really is every student's enrolled in our hybrid path, and that's if the state shuts us down again due to a COVID outbreak or another reason, or if a student is high risk or exposed or has another extenuating circumstance which takes them away from school to learn from home, that we have this middle pathway that we can move kids into so they can continue their learning and progress and success in school as they're away from us.
This is a completely different and more advanced approach than what had to be thrown together in March, correct?
Correct. We really want to make sure that we pride ourselves in the educational experience we provide our kids. We care about our kids. We're invested in their education. We also know there's a lot of work to be done to close that gap in the time that they missed at school in the spring. So we didn't want to be haphazard about what we designed for our kids. We really wanted to be intentional and thoughtful about meeting their academic needs, but also, like you mentioned before, that social emotional piece to check in with them to make sure they're okay, if they have what they need, not only to be successful in school, but their basic needs as well.
So at this point, Jen, what would you say over the last 5 months has been the biggest challenge that you and your team have faced?
I would say the biggest challenge is the changing guidance, guidelines, requirements, accountability measures, and not to anyone's fault or blame. It's a new virus, so the more they learn, those guiding documents and the guidance that we receive from the health department or OSHA or the Michigan Department of Education or executive order, they're all responding right to the new information, and the more we learn about this virus and how it reacts specific to community spread or children, those plans that we worked so diligently on all have to change. We have a great team at CAPS. I couldn't be prouder of our Viking team. All staff really worked together and collaborated and continue to do so this week, last week, over the summer, over the months, through the shutdown, to be able to have a plan that can be flexible and adaptable, so that we are able to maneuver as that guidance changes without impacting the experience of kids or our ability to serve our kids.
So the plan, let's talk a little bit about the plan, because I'm sure as an administrator you have watched some of the reports from some of the schools that have already started, and you've seen that some schools in the first week have had to make a change, go virtual because of outbreaks. I'm sure that makes your heart as a superintendent skip a beat. What happens if there is a single child who has who tests positive for COVID-19 at one of the schools? What is the plan going forward if that were to happen?
Sure. So we're thankful to have a great working relationship with our district health department. I have talked to the director several times a week, quite frankly.
I bet.
Just running scenarios like that. How would we respond to this scenario, or if this were to happen? So essentially, if a student tests positive in a building, in a classroom within CAPS, we would immediately coordinate with the district health department. We would immediately contact the families of that school building to let them know that there was a potential exposure to COVID, with additional information which we would gather from the health department and that student interview. In addition to that, if other students or staff were considered close contacts, so that student interacted closely within 6 feet for a sustained 15 minutes, or dependent on that type of exposure, we would then call those families of those children to have that specific conversation, as would the health department. So there'll be a lot of transparency with COVID this year. Everybody will know what's going on. We are not looking to hide anything. So there'll be a lot of communication, not only from us, but from also the health department.
Welcoming Katy Huckle to the broadcast here. Katy, how are you?
I'm very good. Good morning, everybody.
It's good to see you. And Jen, to follow up on the question that we just asked you, how are you addressing, especially at the elementary school level, where kids want to and always going to cluster together and gather together? What's being done, especially at that level, to ensure that the kids are doing what's safe?
Sure. So as our kids return to school and arrive at school, they will be masked. We have quadrant out the playgrounds to do by grade level, so we can really do our best to keep social distancing outside with masks on. But once they enter the building into their classroom, the students are going to be kept with those pods of students. So a third grade classroom, if I had a third grade classroom, those students would be with those classmates all day long. And they would be in small groups within a seating chart, so we can reduce the amount of risk students would have to other students within the building, in other classes, even within that same classroom. So there's been quite a bit of planning put to teachers to make sure that we track who kids are in close contact with when they're with us, so that if there is a positive COVID case and that student is, of course, going to be home, then those who would be the table mates or just those close contacts would then be contacted and be required to quarantine at home. So we're really doing our best to limit the risk that students have and exposure throughout the day and make sure that we're keeping those same student pods together so they do have social time. It's critical that we allow our kids to interact and be social. That's really important in their development. It's also pretty impossible to keep them from doing that. So we want to make sure we put restrictions and guidance in place to make it as safe as possible.
So 48 hours before school starts officially, we need to take a second here to salute the teachers, the support staff, everyone on these teams, because this sounds like an absolutely Herculean task.
It is.
To me.
It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is, and we have amazing staff. It's all hands on deck. I'll say they're all willing just to do whatever it takes to do this safely, to make sure that our kids get the education that they deserve, but we have their health and safety, obviously priority number one. And I will say, you said it's all staff. It's teachers, it's support staff, it's custodians, it's cooks, it's our maintenance, it's our AAs, it's everybody, our bus drivers. It's whatever it takes this year. So everyone really has their job redefined in the way COVID has impacted that, from disinfection to signage to protocols. But I have to say, I'm really proud to lead this organization because we have an amazing team, and they really just have rolled their sleeves up to say, whatever it takes, we're going to do this well for our kids.
Well, and we want to have the kids back in class because that's the way they learn best.
Right.
At home is not ideal, especially for a lot of families. It is being chosen by some because it's best for them, and that is certainly understandable.
Absolutely.
But man, am I looking for, from the Career Tech Center perspective, I just want to see our kids again,
Right. Everybody misses each other.
Yeah.
Right. They do.
Go ahead, Katy.
Well, Jen, I'm just, your staff. Where did you get all of this information? You're talking about quadrants, and it's a totally new way of teaching and educating. And where are you getting all of your information? Is there another district that's doing it right, or is it coming from the state of Michigan? Who gave you the playbook on this, Jen?
Well, there are about 50 playbooks, Katy.
Oh my gosh!
And each playbook is being rewritten as you go. Yeah.
Right. And I will say, the playbook for guidance really is coming from, the medical health field, which is appropriate. It's a pandemic. It's a health crisis. So that is by far our foremost guiding document. MDE provided us some guidance in the way of how we can become accountable to the way schools operate and function and funding. But, this is not just a Michigan or a Cadillac problem. It's a global problem. So really stealing strategies and tools and processes from other states, other countries, other school districts. We're not so proud that we won't beg, borrow, steal from other schools who have paved a little bit of the way before us. So learning lessons from schools who have shut down in the southern part of the country, all the way to, countries that have been able to survive through the pandemic and operate safely for kids. So we're looking at all of that all the time.
So I'm wondering, Jen, when we had you on the show a few months ago, you talked about, that the school year was cut short. And so there were things that maybe a second grader needed to know by the time they, graduated from second grade and were headed into third grade. How does that gap get handled for the kids now?
Sure. So we have identified those major standards that were missed in the spring, and some of them were taught, but maybe not the way we would have intended through a shutdown. So what we intend to do and what we will do is to really hit those power standards from the previous year that may have been missed or may need to be reviewed. Traditionally, even when we come back in the fall, in a normal year prior to COVID, we do a lot of review and assessing of where kids are coming to us. So we will continue that practice to assess all kids when they come to us to determine where are they, what do they need from us, and there'll be far more personalized instruction this year with some small group intervention to close a lot of those gaps that we would traditionally see, but we'll see more of this year, and maybe more extensive gaps. So we have processes in place. Our teachers are really good about evaluating kids and where they're at and what they need to succeed. So it'll just be more intense for our staff this year, and we'll have to be far more intentional with our time. But they're ready to do that. They have the skills to do that. They've been trained well, and they're eager to start.
Does that mean, it sounds to me like everybody's very focused. Does it mean that there's less free time and less fun time, maybe, Jen?
I don't think so. Less free time for sure.
Okay.
But our staff are committed to high levels of engagement for our kids, mostly because that's how kids learn best, and our teachers are committed to making sure that kids enjoy their educational experience. I'm not saying that happens all day, every day, but I would not guess that there would be less fun or less engagement. I think the intentionality is there. We probably will have less maybe units of instructions or lessons that are reinforcing, or that special project might be cut shorter this year. But I don't anticipate that we take the fun out of education, because we'll lose kids' attention. And they need to have fun. They miss each other. They need to socialize. And that's how kids find meaning in learning. So we call it engagement. Most people call it fun, but we're committed to that.
So ideally, this is a school year that begins on August 31st and ends June of next year, ideally, without any interruptions.
Yes, that's what we want.
That's what we want. However, I'm sure you are probably looking at the extreme possibility, Jen, that there might be that 10 to 14 day period where there might not be any school-wide. For those parents who schedule their kids' summers based on that end date of school, how is that going to work? Is the remote learning going to replace face-to-face learning, and are those days going to count? Are we still looking at ending the school year as you hope, on the day you hope?
Sure. I do think we'll look at ending the school year in mid-June, and the reason I can say that, and it may fluctuate a few days, longer or sooner, but because we have done our work in this last 6 months to prepare for that hybrid. So if there were some intermittent times where students would have to learn from home, we're prepared to count those days of instruction per the state requirements, but also making sure that the instruction is tied to the learning standards kids need to be successful. So what I would say is, if the state said, October 14th, you're shutting down for 3 weeks because things, circumstances have changed in our area, we would probably say within 2 days we would be up and running with that hybrid platform. And I only say 2 days because we would want to make sure students were able to come get a device and to make sure they had the connectivity to make sure that they had what they need to be successful in a home environment. So within a couple of days, we'd be up and running in that hybrid platform, delivering instruction through Schoology, which is the platform that we've developed over the last 6 months. So our teachers have been trained in that. They know how to put their lessons into that platform. It allows for two-way communication, sharing of documents, assignments, assessment. It's far more robust than the tools that we had last spring.
It's got to be a huge challenge to address the kid who lives in a rural area who has no internet to lousy internet, as opposed to someone who's got high-speed internet at their home, and try to make it an equal playing field. Yes,
we're working with local legislatures and advocates to really talk about connectivity in that divide that we have in rural northern Michigan to access. So we're working with individual families right now who do not have connectivity to find a place where they can have high speed internet, reliable, so that their students, if they are facing high-risk situation where they don't feel comfortable coming to school, that we can support them in locating either a spot where they can go to get high-speed internet, or helping support the purchase of internet if they have access. We have two issues. One is affordability and connectivity, which we can support and help. The other is just no access to high-speed internet, which we can't help because it's just not available. So really, if those are the challenges our families are facing, we're working with those families individually to make sure that they have what they need to be successful. But it truly is an equity issue in the state of Michigan, and certainly more of an equity issue in northern Michigan.
Oh, absolutely. And up into the UP. Absolutely. Yeah. Jen, what does lunch look like for these students?
Oh, good question.
So it's a great question. For our little ones, our K-5 kids, we're actually really excited. Our food service Chartwells came up with a great solution. The kids will put their order in the morning. They're going to package their lunches for them and label them by name, and then put them with their classmates at their assigned table. So they get to go to the cafeteria, still sit with their same classmates from their class. That reduces that risk, right? They don't have to wait in line for their food, but they get a lunch experience, so it feels like they we're trying to make that day as normal as possible with keeping those pods isolated to reduce the risk. So we're excited about that.
Yes.
And then our 6-12, we're just using large group space to make sure that we can adequately space kids out at lunch. So our seniors at the high school get to eat in the media center, which will be a privilege. That usually doesn't happen.
Okay.
And then our freshmen will use the junior high cafeteria because we only have one grade down there. We're able to use that space for freshmen. And then our juniors and sophomores can spread out in the high school cafeteria.
Okay.
So, we're feeling good about being able to provide some distancing for lunches. We also have open campus, so we have a significant number of our kids who leave for lunch. So we're feeling good about that. They also have to wear their masks unless they're eating. So, it'll feel a little bit different, but we're trying to make it maybe special instead of a punitive thing with COVID. So
right. So important for your younger students to be able to leave the classroom and go to another space, isn't it? They need that little break. Sure.
They do.
So what would you say to a parent? And I know nerves are frayed and people are nervous and there's anxiousness, anxiety.
Yep.
What would you say to calm the nerves of a parent who is obviously very, very leery of what awaits us here? And we're looking at the unknown over the next several months.
We are. And we have, parents are dealing with their own circumstances, right? So we have parents who are nervous about their child wearing a mask all day. We have parents who are nervous about other people not having masks on. We're nervous about the bus or even just nervous about my students, a freshman, for the first time in a high school, right? Mm-hmm. So what I would say is listen. I think as parents, we want to solve our kids' anxieties really quick. I know I do. I'm guilty of this, but they really just need us to listen to them. It's okay for them to feel the anxiety. They're going to, no matter what we say and do. Comfort them by reminding them of what, their friends are going to be there. We're all in this together. We have resources available. So the other thing that I'm really telling parents is who are trying to make this decision about at home or at school or what to do is we're giving parents 2 weeks to figure this out. Right? So if they start in school and they're not comfortable or their child's not comfortable, then we can move them into the virtual. If they start in virtual and it's just not working, right? Like I know it will not work for my children at home because they won't do it. So
she's honest.
Yeah. I would move them into the face-to-face environment. But I do think, to be fair to parents who are having to make this decision without knowing what this feels like, looks like, we're giving people 2 weeks. I hope that, eases some of the anxiety about these decisions.
Jen, we know that exercise has been proven to ward off depression, and we want to keep all the kids healthy and physically fit. What does gym class look like? Right.
So we are prioritizing keeping gym. Many schools have said no PE, but because it's August, September, and we have beautiful falls up here, we're just going to be outside. Unless the weather says we can't, we have alternative indoor PE lessons. Our PE teachers have been brainstorming, and they're great. So they can do yoga, they can do stretching, they can do many things that allow them to socially distance within PE, but get some type of physical activity. But for right now, those classes will be outdoors every day unless weather restricts us from doing so.
We'll continue our conversation with CAP Superintendent Jennifer Brown in just a moment on Cadillac Unscripted. It's sponsored by Independent Bank as well as RE/MAX Central, Marianne Quist. Buying a home is still the great American dream. And yes, it can be an intimidating process, but you can rest assured and have confidence when the professionals from RE/MAX Central are in your corner to guide you through it. Marianne Quist of RE/MAX Central has helped hundreds of home buyers in and around the Cadillac area navigate the process over the years, and she's ready to help you too. From start to finish, from finding a home to submitting an offer, to understanding the purchase agreement, to inspections, surveys, and appraisals, to the time when you finally sit down and sign those closing documents, Marianne will be there. When you're ready to buy, talk to Marianne Quist at RE/MAX Central. See her listings at teamquist.com. Time now for part 2 of our conversation with CAP Superintendent Jennifer Brown. It's Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. Jen, if it wasn't for the virus, I think the biggest topic of conversation at Cadillac Area Public Schools right now would be the construction. But this is something that's kind of off people's radar right now, but there's been so much that have gone on with your buildings over the summer. So let's turn away from coronavirus for about 10 minutes and let's get an update on where construction stands with all the CAPS buildings.
I know, it's so funny, right? Well, we should be celebrating these new beautiful buildings our kids are going into.
That's right.
But you know what? It is. It's really exciting. I think for our elementary students, they're just going to be wowed by what these buildings look like and what they provide in the way of new technology, just the pride of what the building looks like on the inside. They're pretty amazing. Lots of learning spaces that were designed for this building. Also with COVID, we have new air filtration systems in each of the rooms, so it's scrubbing that air every 30 minutes, which is great. But all of our K-5 students will enjoy new classrooms, new spaces, renovated spaces. So Lincoln, Franklin, and Forest View are opening on Monday as new elementary buildings. Kenwood is still under construction, is supposed to be done in November by design to be our early childhood center. So that will be Viking Learning Center, and they're fantastic. They're very fun to walk through, and I think our kids will really feel at home there. So some of the neat things that we've been able to put in place are a new cafeteria, which will allow us to do, separate classes into smaller PE classes and utilize the large indoor space better this year as well. But everything's on time. I'm not going to lie, it was a scramble. It's been a scramble this week. Our staff have been not only being trained on COVID protocols, but also moving. So it's been quite a week.
Oh, boy.
But they've been troopers, and I'm sure they're really excited about their new spaces as well.
You started at the elementary level, and that was done intentionally, right?
Yes. We wanted to be able to move our fifth grade down into elementary, so all three buildings are serving K-5 students this year. And if you take a stroll by Mackinac Trail, you can see that they're just rolling up there, adding a 2-story classroom addition so that we can move our 7th and 8th grade into Mackinac Trail to make a true middle school at 6, 7, 8. This year, 6th and 7th grade will be at Mackinac Trail, and our 8th graders remain at the junior high.
Okay. And what's the next phase?
So the Mackinac Trail right now is like phase 2. So it starts now, and that will be finished by the beginning of next year. And then we would start phase 3, which really is the high school complex.
And that's complicated because that is a population center. So you're probably I imagine you're looking at doing all of your construction outside of the school year with that.
Not necessarily. By design and moving the 7th and 8th grade to Mackinac Trail, we will be able to start construction in that following spring and do that in a phased approach so that we can, because it will take probably 18 months to 2 years of a construction because of the size and the complexity of that project, the way it will have to be phased in because we can't pause education for the high school.
Pause. So, Jen's got to catch a train. She's headed out of town. She's earned a vacation.
I was just going to say, this lady deserves one, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So, Jen, I have kind of an attitude question. Folks spent so much time at home with their kids, trying to keep their kids on course, still learning and trying to create some type of structure when it felt like mayhem out there when the school year got canceled. Mm-hmm. Is there a new appreciation for educators out there?
I think so. I mean, I think there's an appreciation for educators from the families who now understand how difficult it can be. I think it's really difficult to educate your own children because that's a mixed role. But, we had families who are working from home and educating their children. I think there is a new respect for what goes into designing education for kids and then just engaging them in it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a reverse appreciation from our teachers for the parents who, partnered up with us and were great and did things that they never thought they would have to do and did them well and asked for help. And so I think there was a real partnership that was built last spring between our staff and our parents, and really a shared appreciation for each other.
Yes.
But it is really challenging work to design instruction to meet every student's need, right?
Right.
And then to support them through that learning. But our parents did great. Our teachers did great. I did not hear a lot of negativity,
Good.
And there certainly was lots of opportunities. I think we just are, in a really great community. So
I think so too. And Jen, on the flip side of that, I think students really appreciate their teachers and the staff. You know, they actually want to go to school. And especially when we interviewed some seniors on the show, they said, we miss everybody. We never thought we'd miss our teachers, and we never thought we'd miss school. And we want to go back.
That case of senioritis went away in about 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I think you hit it on the head. I think our students probably learned the most.
Okay.
Right, about their appreciation for what school provides them. I think most kids see this as I have to, not I want to. Like, it's more like I have to go to school and do this. And now I think there's been a shift, certainly, that, okay, this is where I want to be, not I just need to be there. Right. And I think they probably like to be taught by their teachers more than their parents, because I know mine did.
Absolutely. I hadn't thought of it that way. Absolutely. Yeah. And just, getting to hang out and see each other and to socialize and support each other. And you did just an amazing job with getting meals out into the community for students that needed food. I mean, think of our reduced lunch program and how many kids participate in that. And for you to be able to step up and still make that happen for the community really says so much about CAPS and about your leadership, Jen.
Well, thank you. That was a joint effort, and our food service department are just rock stars.
Those Chartwell's girls, I'll tell you what, they get it done.
At a break, and they're just like, bring it on. So they're a unique group, and they're wonderful.
And standing out there sometimes in the summer in the middle of a huge rainstorm,
Right.
Yeah.
They're about feeding kids.
So, Jen, let's guide folks to the website, maybe a Facebook page or someplace online where people can go to learn about what the plan is going forward.
Yes, if you visit www.cadillacschools.org, you'll find our plan there. You'll find access to resources about our virtual academy, access to resources about lunch and breakfast and how a day will look, the day in the life of an elementary student versus a secondary student. Lots of information there. In addition, parents who have chosen to do Viking Virtual will receive an invitation this week I know our high school had an orientation, a Zoom meeting for those students. Over 100, I think, attended that orientation. I know our K-5 is building out a Monday Zoom meeting and orientation for their virtual school, led by Heidi Sting and Karen Hookwater. So lots of information coming the next couple of days and in the beginning of next week about how to access information, tools, communication, that type of thing. So if you haven't received anything, visit the website, but you probably will be receiving more information in the next couple of days.
August 31st. It's almost go time.
I know. Crazy.
We wish you the very, very best. Congratulations on all the work that you've accomplished, and our very best wishes for a safe school year.
No, thank you. And thank you so much for helping us get the word out by using this resource. It's wonderful.
And a special message to all the parents out there, personally from me, let's have a great attitude about this year. You walk into the year with an attitude that it's going to be bad, then it's going to be bad for you.
Right.
If you walk in with an attitude that it's going to be great, we're going to overcome these challenges,
that's right, then
we're going to overcome these challenges.
Yeah.
And that this will be the most challenging school year in modern history, and 2021-22 will be different in a better way.
And Jen and her team have put in the work. They have done their homework.
Yes.
So hats off to an incredible team that put it all together so that our kids could go back to school. Thank you, Jen.
Jen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us here on Cadillac Unscripted. It is sponsored by Independent Bank and Marianne Quist of Remax Central. Join us next week, same time, same station, for more local chat on Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY.